Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
In today's podcast, we are covering the first reboot of Monster High, which was titled Welcome to Monster High, the origin story.
What I like to call Strike One. Yes, 6 years ago, Mattel tried to reboot Monster High unnecessarily by having the ghouls be the ones who create the school for monsters. However, that one was so crappily received that it got canceled after just 2 horror movies.
Yep. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, click notification updates on future podcasts, and we'll pause video.
And it seems like they didn't learn their lesson, and now this month we're all in watching Strike 2.
Right? And it seemed like when people figured out, they said, wait, 6 years ago you did that, and it was 6 years before you even did that reboot.
The live action Strike.
Right. So now we managed to do worse. And it looks like, it seems like someone figured out that every 6 years it's just going to reboot Monster High again, regardless of how it goes. So who knows what's going to happen the next time?
Now this time, not only do they change the characters' personalities, the animation, how the characters look, what their specialties were, their family situations, the number of man-stars and ghouls that attended the school.
Right.
Dracula's dad, Claudine's mom.
Yeah,
It was just a whole different universe, and they should have just created like maybe the next class instead of trying to reboot it.
And a lot of people said that if you had done that and just said it was still in the Monster High universe, you were more open to that, saying, oh, the ghouls graduated, now we got a new group for new generation, and that would have been perfectly fine. You probably still wouldn't like as much as the original, but I'm like, hey, you're trying to do something else and make something new out of the same thing. That would have been perfect. Mm-hmm. But for this, the point for them, according to Mattel, was that they really wanted to get a newer and younger generation Monster High fans, because there was a little bit of controversy with the first one about the way the dolls were designed, the depiction of Claudine, was there proper representation, even though the entire show was about representation. So, and even though the show and the dolls did just fine, Mattel decided to pull the plug. So when they brought it back 6 years later, they completely revamped the story.
Yeah.
In this universe, monsters are terrified of humans and they're in hiding. So the monsters scattered all across the globe in fear of humans, which was ironic because in the first one, it was an old stereotype that monsters were scared of humans and vice versa, because they were pretty much living side by side, but they still had a little bit of issues with each other. They weren't on an angry mob thing. Right. And here it's canon that if a monster goes out and a human sees them, a mob will come and try to take them out. So it becomes less fun and more like this is them doing like an underground thing, society for monsters.
And they decide to add some bullies in. There were no bullies in the original. The only bullies were the humans in Ghouls Rule.
Right.
But there were no bullies like you have in the standard high school movies.
Right.
But in here they decided to create Monica Decay, and Ghoulia was perfect, but no, they decided they need to just ruin that legacy and create Monica Decay.
Okay.
A bad pun, a bad character, and the zombies that were her lackeys were actually funnier and a better addition than she was herself.
Yeah! Alright, okay, we might as well bring that up first because we're going to be talking about the rest of it anyway. Yes, Monica was added to replace Ghoulie, and she became the main antagonist. The biggest...
one of the dumbest things they ever did.
Right. The biggest bully you had in the original Monster High besides humans, you had Torlight, who was just more of like, she talked a bunch of crap.
But she wasn't a bully, she wasn't mean-spirited, she was more mischievous.
Right.
She just wanted to be one of the ghouls.
Right, that's really as far as it went.
This character.
Yeah, and here, her goal is, you know, the rest of the monsters want to coexist with the humans. Well, Monica doesn't want that. She wants to kill the humans. Without saying the word kill, she wants to kill humans or turn them into zombies. No, with them, they don't want to say it because it's for kids. Right. But that's what she wants to do. She wants to either turn them into zombies or zomboys, or just take over the human world out of vengeance. And it was funny enough, the zomboys, you don't know where or how they came to be. They have the constant thing where they're just kind of like regular zombies, where they're just mindlessly doing what she says. And the funny part is that there are times when they're distracted, like she's doing something, they're doing something else, and when she's telling them to come and do something, they're busy talking or chatting, having conversations, drinking tea and stuff, and then they get their attention like, oh, and they have to pretend they're stupid again. So you're just pretending for her. And it was funny because it happens like multiple times. They'll be doing fine and they're normal, and then, oh wait, we gotta go back to this. Pretend to be the monsters again and pretend to be stupid. So that ended up being hilarious. And that's about all where the comedy stopped.
Yeah, she was just this really cruel, awful character. There's no other way to put it. There was nothing good about her. There wasn't that she was underneath. She was a good ghoul.
Right.
No, she was just the worst character they've ever created to date in the franchise.
There wasn't even a redemption arc for her, or seeing like, hey, stop her before she does something she'll regret. None of that was in there.
There was no redeeming this character.
No. And
then they changed the characters that we know and love. Let's start with Draculaura.
Right.
Whom, again, she and the dad are different.
right. Now, you never really saw Draculaura's dad in the original. You just knew he was Dracula. That was it. Well, they gave him a presence in here, and basically it's now Dracula Mavis from Hotel Transylvania. Only this version of Dracula is even more uptight to a point where he's not even a threat anymore. And Draculaura is now the main ghoul you follow instead of Frankie, even though she's just as new as her. They decided to follow her instead, her be the main focus out of the group. And for here, she's still learning how to be a vampire and everything. And the dad tells her about, why the monsters can't go out and do what they want because they're scared of humans. And she ends up meeting Frank, who ends up who's being sent there by her father, Frankenstein, who's also in hiding. I don't know why they send their kids out by themselves, but they do in here. And she stays with her, and they kind of want to start up a school. They want to build up a place where it would change the world and have the monsters and humans coexist, and so they know they're not scary.
Now, Claudine is also different. She no longer has Claude and Howleen and some other brothers that you know about. Now she has 10 pups that are her brothers.
Right.
She's the only girl. She's no longer a fashion designer or has any fashion sense, and she's a tomboy.
Yeah.
And she's totally unrecognizable. Her mom is in here now. They did make her beautiful. And now she and Claudine's dad, that it's a ship.
Yeah.
They're just not saying it.
Yeah.
And then Frankie.
Yeah, and Frankie, they still kept him where she's only 15 days old. But the bad news is that they sent their daughter out to a place they don't know where she'll go or how she'll be separated from her family, and she's 15 days old. There's no school or anything. They just said, oh, well, they separate the family, so at least if they scare, they have a chance of all of them being taken out at once. So she kind of ends up there, and Draculaura and her dad end up taking care of her. Now, her personality is still intact. She's still the really nice one, the sweet one, the hand coming off, the electric bolts thing, and being naive about stuff. Her character was like the only one they really didn't change. If you had to make out a difference, I would say she's a little more, she's not as feminine, but that's it.
And this has to be brought up because it was there. It seems like they were putting Claudine with a character they created called Wraith. So they were shipping her with a boyfriend, which she didn't have in the original series. But it seems like in this version, Frankie and Draculaura were set up to be a ship.
Yeah, it did really seem like it, because there was no Claude for Draculaura, and there was no the unicorn zombie guy from Freaky Fusion, so he didn't exist. So yeah, and they really didn't have a bunch of monsters in here too. You had Wraith, you had Deuce, who they really made into a geek because of his eyes for some reason, and you had a couple skeleton guys, and one is a globby looking monster that ate everything. It was supposed to be like the glob monster ghost from Ghostbusters. There were no monsters aside from a few, and that was it. So there really wasn't really any guys for them to be paired up with or shipped with, so they decided, hey, let's just put them together, which was so odd because if it's about having a mixture of people, where are all the guys? You only have 3.
Right. So the way the story was written was not very well done. It wasn't very interesting. It didn't have a satisfying conclusion. But one of the best things I can say about it is all the original voice actors returned for the characters that returned.
Right. And then you had the other characters, the other ghouls did come in. They were still revamped. It's Dracula and Frankie were a little less feminine. Frankie was, aside from that, exactly the same. Claudine was now a tomboy and she was into more of doing hair. She wanted a hair salon instead of being a fashion mogul, which was weird. Cleo was in here, but she doesn't run the school. She's still wealthy, but she doesn't use it.
And she doesn't dress like she's fantastic, fabulous. And there was no Deuce.
There was Deuce?
I'm sorry, there was in this one. He just looked like
he was a bit dorky looking. He was
more like a BOI boy.
Yeah.
Than he was the character he was.
Right. And he really didn't have many lines. Like, they talked to him like a little bit and that was it. So they really made sure there was going to be no ship. And you had Laguna, who they kept being Australian, unlike the new one. And that was it. But you didn't have Gil until like way later. And they also added...
And this version, wasn't Gil in a wheelchair?
At first, and then they scrapped it.
Yeah.
He was in on a deserted island, and the episode was called Gil's Island. It was supposed to be a pun, and Gil was living by himself, and they went and found him, and Abby, and some other. They were all really separated across. Then they all had superpowers, too, on top of it, which we're guessing is because of the superhero boom back then, so they thought giving the monsters powers would be interesting, and it kind of was, but it just wasn't really necessary.
It wasn't done very well at all.
No.
So as you know, this is, as we said, the first movie. The second movie, Electrify, we already covered last year. So if you haven't seen that one, there should be a card with a link that you can watch that one.
Right.
It's no better than this one. It's actually worse with
Ooh.
horrid fashion that just isn't fashion.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe you like this version. You think we're kind of being hard on it. If you have seen the reboot, Welcome to Monster High, let us know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't seen it, honestly, we say don't waste your time.
Right.
Give it a pass. Stick with the original. Or, see what you think of the live action strike number 2 that's going on right now this month.
Right.
And personally, for us, it was all joy when we found out that it got scrapped.
Right.
And we no longer had to see any more of this because we kept thinking maybe it'll get better, and then it didn't get better, so we already had resigned. We were not going to watch any more of the movies.
Right. The only thing, we really didn't see many reviews on it. They were mostly just like posts saying about what did they do to the franchise. And there were a few people that said it was just okay. Very few loved it to the extent like the original, but the most we have is just saying it was an okay one or it was terrible. So it kind of ranges from there, and then you have the little bitty part that say, oh, it was just as great as the classic. And if you think of any of those opinions, that's just fine.
And as we said give it a hard pass if you haven't seen it.
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and weekly videos on your favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
You know how bad this was for us? If we found it at the Tree or Dollar Tree or Dollar Store or 99-cent only, whatever it is that's no longer a dollar store, I think I'd leave it.
Right. So, thank you so much for watching Mask Entertainment.
And Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.